In the last episode, Sarah saw her brother's wheelchair and knew that Wendell was probably dead. She couldn't control her emotions, so she grabbed her weapon and came at Sage. Sage, fearing for his life, releases zombies from their cages. Josiah and Sarah are forced to kill the zombies before pursuing Sage. By the time they get outside, Sage has escaped. Sarah, in a frenzy, runs off, leaving Josiah to fend off the zombies alone. Reaching the car, Sarah hears Morgan's voice over the radio, saying he's close to their meeting point. She remains silent. After killing a few zombies, Josiah rushes to the car, but it's already starting. Unsure of Sarah's intentions, Josiah narrowly climbs onto the car as Sarah plans to abandon him. Fueled by rage, Sarah focuses on finding Sage. Josiah reminds her of their deal, but Sarah, devastated by Wendell's death, declares their partnership over and tries to push Josiah out. The car careens uncontrollably and crashes into a guardrail, heading towards a valley. Luckily, the car didn't roll over. By the time Sarah regained consciousness, it was nighttime. Josiah also opened his eyes, but he realized that the car door was blocked by a rock and he couldn't get out. Through the window, Sarah sees something horrifying, an unexploded nuclear warhead, only 50 feet away, emitting radiation. She said they had to get out of here as soon as possible, and that there were already a lot of zombies surrounding the car as well. She laments, "I just found out my brother is dead, but Josiah said you wouldn't have come out looking for your brother if you knew he was dead in the first place." There's a telepathic connection between brothers. He glances at the approaching zombies, saying more will come, and they can't escape alone. He urges Sarah to call Morgan for help. Sarah didn't want to. She didn't want to ask Morgan to die. Josiah shares his past experience. Once trapped in a fire as a rescue worker, everyone gave up on him except his brother, who felt Josiah was still alive. He said he could feel Josiah's heartbeat, and Rufus eventually led him to Josiah. Josiah thought his brother's claims were false until one day he felt a piercing pain, realizing his brother was dead. Even without seeing it, he tells Sarah that her continued search for Wendell indicates she hasn't felt the cessation of his heartbeat. Without seeing a body, Wendell might still be alive. After hearing all of this and spending the day together, Sarah was convinced that Josiah wasn't a bad person. He just had a hard time letting go of his brother's death. Without further hesitation, Sarah calls Morgan for help. Informing him of their overturned car's location, Josiah solemnly asks if she's ready to fulfill their deal. Sarah replies they'll continue to search for Wendell, but she insists Josiah can't kill Morgan, who is a good person. She tells Josiah that he's not a murderer, just someone with a deep obsession, like she had when she saw the wheelchair, and lost her mind trying to kill Sage and abandon Josiah. Josiah was silent. Why wouldn't he know this? He was just a bit upset about his brother's death. Soon, more zombies gather outside. Unable to wait for Morgan, they must act first. Josiah forcefully opens the trunk and jumps out to fight the zombies, with Sarah and Rufus following. Josiah, with his imposing stature, easily combats the zombies, while Sarah, less physically strong, struggles a bit. There are not many zombies, but there are a lot of them. Sarah can only run to the roof of the car to rest for a while. Just as Josiah fends off a zombie, a dark figure pierces its head. When she saw the weapon, Sarah knew Morgan was coming. Josiah freezes at the name. Morgan was also puzzled and said, "I've already killed you and cut off your head." Seeing his brother's killer, Josiah can't stay calm. They engage in a long weapon fight. Despite Sarah's pleas, Josiah is unyielding. The fight intensifies until Josiah overpowers Morgan, knocking him senseless and removing his mask. Sarah screams, trying to stop Josiah. He declares he won't kill Morgan, but his brother will. Josiah brings out his brother's head, intending it to finish Morgan. In the face of death, Morgan regains some lucidity and overthrows Josiah. Rufus approaches the head but gets bitten on the nose. Sarah intervenes, splitting the head in two. Rufus is hurt, and Josiah, now more lucid, breaks down, holding Rufus. The search dog has become family to him.
What have I done?
Later, Josiah feeds Rufus, regretting his actions, blinded by hatred. Morgan expresses his condolences. Josiah, understanding it's not Morgan's fault, blames himself for Rufus's suffering, as the dog saved him twice. Josiah, preparing to end Rufus's pain, reflects that his actions were not for his brother but for himself. Unable to let go and ultimately harming his companion, all this made Sarah and Morgan a little sad too. Josiah buried Rufus here, Leaving behind its favorite canned food, Josiah apologized to Morgan for his brother's past behavior, saying that his brother hadn't used to be like that. Morgan responds that it's all in the past, and then tells Sarah they need to get going. Wendell, without his wheelchair, must have received help, likely from Victor, who's created a place and is taking in people from their past. He's trying to prove himself to someone. If he ran into Wendell out there, there's a good chance he was taken back. If they leave now, they'll be there by dawn. Josiah also decides to join them, having promised to help Sarah find her brother. Morgan had no problem with it. Soon, they reach Victor's territory, surrounded by countless zombies as a protective measure. Sarah, seeing the sign, tries to call and ask if Wendell is inside. Before she gets a response, two of Victor's men approach, and they have to drop their weapons. Morgan asks, "Is Victor too scared to come himself?" No sooner had he spoken than Victor's voice could be heard. He said, "I'm happy to clear up any misunderstandings with my friends face to face. We've seen you from afar." Sarah gets right to the point and says, "Is Wendell in the building?" Victor admits that Wendell is indeed in the building. Sarah is relieved and asks how he's doing. Victor proudly said that he's living a wonderful life and that your brother's expertise in logistics and management is a rare talent. Sarah requests to see him, but Victor refuses, remembering those who stood by him in critical moments, and she wasn't one of them. He refused to let anyone from here into the building. He mocks Morgan's dire situation in the submarine, barely surviving with a baby. Howard adds that he's witnessed it firsthand. Victor goes on to say that there is no mercy in the new world and that if you really want to do what's best for your brother, you should get out of here. Sarah, glancing at the building, feels grateful Wendell is alive. Sarah tells Victor not to tell Wendell she was here or he'll be out looking for her.
Agreed.
Sarah wanted to cry knowing that Wendell was in there, but she couldn't see him. Her bond with her brother was really strong. Josiah quickly helps her regulate her breathing. Grateful, Sarah sincerely thanks him. Morgan invites them to the submarine. Sarah's confused. "Didn't Victor say you guys were having a hard time?" Morgan replies, "We've found more supplies. It'll be tough, but it won't always be this way." Josiah said he's been around the warhead for too long and has already been exposed to radiation. Sarah quickly reassured him, saying he wouldn't get sick, and handed him a bottle of anti-radiation medicine that was originally prepared for Wendell, but now that he's safe, it's no longer needed. In the end, Josiah decided to leave on his own. Sarah also followed Morgan to the submarine. The group that collects zombies' clothes on the streets appeared here.
Dispersing them. I found something. And he's going to want to see this himself.
And what the man found was the damaged dud. In the post-apocalyptic world, scavenging for supplies is a survival skill everyone must master. The man pulled out some fruits he had just scavenged and handed them over. His companion carefully checked them, confirming they were radiation-free and safe to use.
The hell is he?
Just then, the dragon fruit in his hand was shattered by a gunshot. From a distance, two figures dressed in black, riding horses and armed with guns, were rapidly approaching them. Both of them immediately raised their hands. They guessed that these two were the recently famed ethical outlaws known as the Dark Horses. After the Great Destruction, they made it their mission to help others and fight injustices. Judging by their build, Dark Horses seemed to be a man and a woman. They were here because these two had stolen someone else's food. They made it clear, "We don't kill without reason. Return what you've taken, and you can leave. That's our code." But the duo seemed defiant, convinced that the good Dark Horses wouldn't shoot. The man in white lunged to grab the gun. Faced with danger, the male Dark Horse shot decisively, attracting nearby zombies. They had to deal with the approaching zombies first. Their movements were fluid and efficient, taking down over a dozen zombies in just a few minutes. By then, the man they were confronting had already fled. The male Dark Horse didn't shoot again. They were Sherry and Dwight, survivors of the nuclear blast. Dwight was annoyed. He didn't want to kill, but had been forced to. Since surviving the blast, moral constraints among survivors had eroded. As Dark Horses, Dwight and Sherry maintained order, adhering to their own set of principles, avoiding killing unless absolutely necessary, as it could lead to losing oneself. Sherry consoled Dwight, assuring him they had followed their code. Half an hour later, they returned to the cellar. Ever since the Great Destruction, they had been living there with Kevin's family. Sherry excitedly brought out the dragon fruit, explaining that they had returned the fruit to its original owner, who in turn gave them a few as a thank you. Dwight had also found a toy for Briga, a Tetris handheld game console. Briga expressed her gratitude with a hug. However, Kevin and Kim seemed hesitant, as if they had something important to say. Recently, They had heard about a place called Padre over the radio. Viewers with good memory would recall that in the bunker, Alicia left a letter for Will mentioning Padre. Many people have heard from the radio about how safe and suitable Padre is for living, but no one knows where it is. Dwight and Sherry had been searching for it too. The couple seems to have wanted to talk to the Dwights for a long time. Kevin hesitantly said, "I know this is hard, but we can't wait any longer." Sherry was confused. Kim continued, "This place is falling apart, and we're running out of food. We want to take our kids and find a safe haven." Dwight replied, "If it weren't for you two taking us in, we wouldn't have survived. Can you guys wait a little longer? Wait until we find Padre and then go together." Mr. and Mrs. Kevin didn't say anything else. Just then, a voice came through the walkie-talkie, asking for Dark Horse's help. Their reputation had spread throughout the area, and most survivors knew of them. Following the address provided, they headed to a forest, wondering if they were in the wrong place.
Over here!
They cautiously drew their guns and investigated. A man was pressing on another person's wound, claiming they were stabbed by a group. Just as Sherry got closer, as it turns out, it was an ambush against the Dark Horses. The man removed his mask. It was Howard. He explained the radiation levels were safe here, and they could remove their masks. "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have gone through all this trouble," he said. They had no choice but to cooperate. Howard revealed, "Our boss sent me to find you." Before Sherry could ask who the boss was, the one who took them away was naturally Victor. Victor had been living luxuriously since the Great Destruction, leisurely playing golf and even having caddies to serve him. He wielded his power like a dictator. Soon, Howard reported that the Dark Horses had been brought in. When they removed their hoods, both parties were surprised. Victor hadn't expected the renowned Dark Horses to be old acquaintances. Dwight and his wife were even more astonished by their surroundings. Victor then showed them around his masterpiece, which is now home to about 200 people. Dwight learned of Victor's policy. He only harbored useful people, rejecting anyone he disliked. Like Morgan, Sarah, and their group, Victor got to the point. He needed a favor from the Dark Horses. When Dwight learned Victor had turned away Morgan and others, he bluntly told Victor to shut up. Victor seemed to guess Dwight's reaction, but he voiced his request anyway. He wants them to bring back a woman named Mickey. "We took her in during her darkest time, nursed her back to health, and then she insisted on finding her husband, who everyone believes is dead." Sherry didn't understand why Victor was meddling in her quest to find her husband. Victor explained, "I'm concerned about the safety of the people in this building. I can't watch Mickey risk her life for a dead man, especially since she wants to head to a place called Padre heard over the radio, which doesn't exist." Sherry, naturally curious about Padre, pressed for more information. Victor said he had scouted a 50-mile radius with no sign of a place suitable for human habitation. He laid out his terms. He knew where Mickey was hiding, but his people were beaten every time they tried to get her. He proposed the Dark Horses attempt it, offering them residence in his building in return. At that moment, Dwight saw a cavalryman pinning up photos, which Victor explained was their way of recording the deceased. After a brief tour, Sherry rejected Victor's proposal, declaring their honor code was to protect people from tyrants like him. Unfazed, Victor told them to take their time considering, emphasizing it was a new world. They were blindfolded and escorted out to prevent them from knowing the entry and exit routes. In truth, Dwight was tempted. The idea of Kevin's family moving into the building seemed like a good option. However, Sherry was resolute in her refusal to compromise with someone like Victor. Instead, she proposed helping Mickey find her husband and then heading to Padre together. Meanwhile, Mickey was tearing off tape and mending the tears and gloves of her clothing, which appeared to be a modified combat suit. Lost in thought while examining her gear, a zombie suddenly appeared at her window.